Okay, it is about to happen. It's happening.
Fantastic.
Caitlyn
Fantastic.
Schiller, this is the biggest treat. Hi.
I think this is the biggest treat. Hi, so nice to talk with you. I'm digging your colorscape back there so much. So good.
So I don't know if I think you probably know that I worked on this book. I wrote this book and I'm really happy about it. But
Yes.
one of the things in the
Really.
book is about bringing color to your life to help you feel good. And this is always one of the examples I show just because I'm like,
Perfect.
it's energizing. It's totally energizing.
Mhm.
This is a big moment for me, and this is because Caitlyn, you were early anchor. You were an
Mhm.
early anchor person. And I would
Mhm.
love us to talk a little bit about anchor, which is how we met, just so that
Yeah.
people who don't understand what that is, how do you think of that time now?
Oh my goodness, that time and that service. Well, Anchor is something completely different now, which is so interesting. It evolved into an open podcast making platform, which makes a lot of sense for Anchor. And then, acquired by Spotify. But back in the day, it was just like strange, intimate, cuddly confessional chat rooms for adults who didn't know each other to just answer. It seemed like answering provocative or interesting questions. And uh, I just remember I thought it was the coolest thing because I've always thought that voice is such an intimate medium. And to be sharing like that with a whole bunch of people that I didn't know was really exhilarating. And I remember that you were one of them. I really liked your voice. And I thought that you always had something really thoughtful to say. Um, and I played around with Anchor for months. But then I just got to this point, and maybe we talked about this, but I got to this point where I was emotionally exhausted by it.
Yeah, it
And
was tiring.
it really was because you
Yeah.
felt, I think because of that the added valence of humanity that hearing someone's voice gives, you feel, or I felt, I shouldn't project, I felt really beholden to whomever I was speaking with on that platform. Like I had to give an answer. If they responded and I did not reply in kind, then I was doing them some kind of horrible disservice or I was ignoring them. So it just became really kind of emotionally burdensome to keep it up. And I had to just shut it down. I felt kind of sad about it, but I was also tired. And that's actually a thing that I'm feeling more and more lately with communication in general, even WhatsApp. I look at the things I haven't replied to and I get so tired. I don't know if you feel like that.
That is very interesting. Do you have audio on WhatsApp? Are you doing like video exchanges with people? Okay, so that explains.
Not video, voice notes. And actually, I find that voice notes are one of the only things that I can really stomach now lately. Texting replies, just thinking about it makes me tired. Which is funny because I
That's
just that made me tired from anger. But these are with familiars, people I've known for a really long time. Every morning I go for a walk before work. It's sort of my morning routine is get up, don't wash your face, put on clothes, get outside, move around for 45 minutes. I used to run, but my knees can't really take it anymore. Ooh, so crotchety. Um, but I do that and I leave a voice note for one of my really dear friends in Madrid. And I get one from her usually later in the day. But that's like part of my morning every single morning. So I use voice notes a lot, but it doesn't tire me out in the same way that Anchor did.
I find this interesting for a couple of reasons. One, you now work on a podcast, and back then you weren't working on a podcast, right? I mean, like the majority of your job is audio now. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. I do work on a podcast, one that we haven't produced any new seasons in months because I've been working on a bunch of other audio stuff. So I make audio full time now.
And that's a big change. Back then you weren't doing that.
No.
But you're
Mm-mm.
so good at audio. Caitlyn, I like
Oh,
found
thanks.
you. I mean, I was like, this one knows. This one is really good at this. And now it's become your full-time job. So you're at Blinkist. What other audio stuff are you doing?
At Blinkist, well, we've done actually a couple of different things this year. There was a season of Simplify, which is the podcast that I produce and host. That was early in the year, like January or February. And then we released a 2 minute in-app series called 2 Minutes with Seth Godin. It was 2 minutes twice a week for weeks and weeks. I think there were a total of like 52 episodes of just little, typical Seth Godin nuggets of wisdom about marketing, about fear, runs the gamut. It was really, really nice. That was just like a limited run series. And then we did, when the pandemic hit, we did this other series called Checking In. And it was just short talks, I'd say between 5 and 7 minutes, with first people from inside of Blinkist and then other people, interesting people from outside of Blinkist, about how they were coping, what was different for them, what had changed. That was tautological. What was different for them, what specific tactics they were using to sort of get by. We talked to a lovely man who is a garden specialist. I don't even know how to properly
Plant man.
A plant man, yes, a plant man who urged people to just plant whatever was in their spice rack. It was like a project to get you through lockdown times. But it went from people like that to Emily Nagoski, who's a sex educator who I'd spoken with.
Literally tweeted her this morning.
She's
At
amazing.
her, I should say, tweeted at her to ask her, okay, I know you and I both are obsessed with her book, Burnout, The Cycle of Stress. And I tweeted at her because I wanted to know, she goes through all of these different, well, she and her twin sister go through all of these different ways that you can move through the cycle of stress. And I asked her, and I'm curious what you think about this, whether dreams also are one of the ways we move through the cycle of stress. And I ask this because, and sorry to my husband who's editing this, he's rolling his eyes right now. He hates talking about dreams. He hates dreams. But I asked her because sometimes my dreams feel like I'm really trying to work through emotion. Like I'm really angry at an ex-boyfriend from a decade ago. Things are just like coming up as if I need to like work through them. And I'm curious if that is one of the ways our bodies physiologically process emotion.
That is a really interesting question. I do not know.
What's she gonna say? We'll see. Will she even write me back?
She probably will. She's really good like that. Did you tweeted her? You didn't? I don't know if she's as active on Twitter as she's on Instagram, but I have her email address if you want it.
Oh my God. I love it. Love it. So you did her for the Checking In series.
Yep. For Checking In, also for Simplify.
Okay.
I talked with her about for Checking In, we spoke about, excuse me, I should probably make sure WhatsApp doesn't make more noises at us through this experience. I'm so sorry.
I like that you call it an experience.
What?
We're having an experience.
More than a chat. I feel like I've known you for a really long time, even though
oh my God,
actually seeing each other's faces.
I know, but I also feel like I know your face really well. I mean, I think part of that is Instagram too. Like,
yeah, that's kind of funny. What was I talking about? Emily Nagoski. Yeah, we spoke about how to deal with and how to stay intimate with an intimate partner with whom you are living in the times of Corona, someone that you have to see 24/7. Yeah.
And that is your situation. You are living with your partner.
I was until recently.
Okay.
Been a big shift in my life. Yeah, I got out of a 3.5-year relationship just about a month ago, which was kind of a long time in coming, to be honest, but was important to do. But I'm facing that.
And that also was, I mean, we haven't even said you live in Berlin.
I do, yeah.
We are talking cross continentally, and your relationship was an international relationship, right? I mean, you were with somebody who's
he's actually American.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that.
No, that's okay. He would like to be mistaken for German, but he was American.
Okay.
He's still American, though maybe getting his citizenship any day now. Who knows? But I was going to allude to being in the long, dark, cold Berlin winter, because it's long and dark and cold, and we had daylight savings time on Sunday, and it's dark at it starts to get dark at 3:45 now. There's still some daylight out there, but not a whole lot.
Do you have a light lamp? What are you doing? Yeah.
It's at the office. I will have to go get it. I try not to go to the office whenever possible. Last time I was at the office, I ended up having lunch with a coworker who ended up being exposed to COVID-19, and then I had to, quarantine myself for 2 weeks. But
I was wondering, what is Berlin? Is Berlin sort of, in California, you're not supposed to go anywhere ever without a mask. Most kids are not in school. What's the situation in Berlin?
Yeah, well, up until very recently, about a month ago, we've been extremely lucky. The summer felt pretty much normal, to tell you the
Oh,
truth.
wow.
Apart from having to wear masks in restaurants and public transportation, and when you go into shops and things, then masks are. I keep stumbling and looking for words. I'm saying Maskenpflicht in my head, but what I mean
Right.
is
I was wondering, one of my questions actually was going to be
required.
like, how much of your life is German? Are you like half German, half English, or what?
Honestly, I was just talking to a friend about this. So little of my life is German, especially now that we're in lockdown. Well, not lockdown yet, but I think that that's probably, we're going to have what they're referring to as lockdown light starting next week. Um, I'm pretty sure that's going to happen because Bundeskanzlerin Merkel wants to save Christmas by putting some measures in place now. Berlin's been pretty normal up until recently, as I said, but it's getting more and more like the US. I think the death toll is rising, the cases are rising. We've been lucky to not have too many deaths here. I think any death is a lot from something that is preventable with, safety regulations and masks and people not being dumb and going to parties. But yeah, you asked me about German. An embarrassingly small portion of my life is in German now because I work in English all day. The official language of Blinkist is English because there's so many international people that just happens to be the easiest to default to. But when I moved here 9 years ago, my German was better than it is at present because I just don't practice. So I'm thinking
But
I'm
you
gonna need to
still are
start.
thinking of certain words in German. I mean, that's a sign.
Yeah, that I guess that is true. Certain words for sure, like Maskenpflicht. But that is a word that I see all the time in German. It means, the mask is required.
It sounds
Mask
like mask in place.
kind of does. Yeah, kind of does.
So Blinkist, how long have you been in Blinkist? Like 3 years, 4 years?
No, roughly forever in startup years. I've been there since 2014.
That's amazing. Whoa.
Yeah, yeah, or 2013, maybe in
Were you one
2013.
of the earliest? Were you one of the
Yeah,
first? Okay.
I think I was number 12. So I've seen it
Amazing.
grow a lot. There are 150 of us now. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I never thought I would stay anywhere that long, but here I am.
What
I've
do you
gotten,
want people to know about Blinkist that they may not know?
ooh, um, what they may not know. Hmm. Well, people say that Blinkist is a book summary service. And yeah, it is, but I guess what I would want them to know is that we're more than that. Um, every blink that we make, which is what we call the reduced versions, the shorter versions of the books that we blink, is an original work. And now we're even more than that because we recently launched last week, actually, a product that I've been leading creative production on called Shortcasts, which takes podcasts and pulls out the core of them, the key insights, and works with the original hosts to put new context and wrapping on the beginning and the end, and sometimes in interstitial pieces. So you get from a 50-minute podcast, you'll get like a 10-minute piece of audio that just is really condensed and has some really dazzling, excellent takeaways. And they sound so good. I'm really, really proud of them. So,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm very excited. I want to listen to every single one. I know
Hooray!
that you like if you're working on it, I know you're pulling out really interesting stuff. So I'm excited about
Very
that.
kind of you. Yes. Well, it's good that
Caitlin,
you
I'm
can.
sure we talked about this a million times on Anchor, but are you an overthinker?
Oh my God. Yes, I would say so. Yes.
What are some of the signs to you that you're in a like spiral overthinky moment?
Mm, um, I am very, very fortunate and cursed in that I have an extremely eloquent body that speaks in pain and tells me when I am doing too much. And really, anyway, I get stress neck really, really badly. My shoulders just start to creep on up. And with the shoulder creep also comes searing pain down my right arm and into my hand. And when I start to feel really tense, I notice, okay, I'm probably stewing and spiraling over something, and I probably need to get out of that somehow. But my body will tell me generally. And I also notice, I guess it's really physical signs for me, which is funny because your body is the only thing that can really intervene when your mind is revving at a million miles an hour, but I also get this, like, maybe you're familiar with it too, this feeling in my throat, this kind of like fluttery, it just feels
There's
like one
actually a
lump.
name for it. There's a
What
name
is it?
for it. Someone recently told me this name. It blew my mind. I have to look again. I want to say one of the words is globus. Hold on.
Huh.
Um, and I truly was mind blown because I had no idea this is a real thing. Oh, here we go. Okay. Globus sensation.
Globus sensation. Okay.
Yes. Um, yes. I mean, I was, and then I started Googling Globus sensation, and it is acknowledged to be something real. So I think we should learn everything we can about Globus sensation.
Thank you. I'm glad that I have a word for this thing now.
Yeah.
I
Another
feel
thing that I learned from that same sort of Googling was that many people who have vasovagal or like fainting
Mhm.
issues often had their first fainting episode in their teens. That is
Huh.
like a common thing across the board if you happen to have incidents of like more than 4 fainting spells in your life. You probably had your first one in your teenage years. And that can sort of like create a pattern. I was kind of mind blown by that because I fainted in 2014 and 2015. It was like one of my signs that led me to understand that I had anxiety. And well, it was a neurologist who led me to understand it, but I had that as an example. And when I looked it up, I remembered getting this cortisol shot in my shoulder as a 13-year-old and fainting. And I was like, oh my God, that was like where I would have first known that I actually had vasovagal.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. What were you getting a cortisol shot in your shoulder at age 13
I
for?
used to be a really serious tennis player as a kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I ruined my hips rowing, so I understand. I've had cortisone shots in both of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally. Wait, did I say cortisol or cortisone?
You said cortisol, but I know it's cortisone.
Thank you.
It's okay. I think I also said
I
cortisol.
meant cortisone. I just read so much about cortisol, Caitlin. I am like constantly learning about cortisol. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Like all words that sound like cortisol are now replaced with cortisol in my brain. Okay. So globus sensation. Now, here's what I want to know. Your body is telling you you're having these things. What do you do to talk back to your body? A la Emily Nagoski.
Walk back to my body. I find that I often have to have some kind of physical intervention, whatever I'm doing. So that will often mean shutting my laptop, going outside, going for a walk. Walking is like really, really key for me and always has been. I think one of the things that happens when you are suddenly single again after not having been for a while is that you sort of get reoriented to the things that make you you and the things that have made you strong and healthy without outer support before. And I found myself turning back to walking and yoga in the past month and a half, especially. But when I'm feeling especially anxious, getting out and doing something with my body is really important. Anything but sitting and continuing to stare at the computer. It's
That's exactly right. Do
does
you
not
know
help.
do you know Isaac Fitzgerald? I kind of assume you do.
I don't. I don't know that name.
Okay.
Tell me.
He was the book editor of BuzzFeed for many years. And in America, he's connected a lot to books in the public sphere. Like he's on the Today Show regularly talking about books. He's also a writer.
Mhm.
And he recently got out of a relationship and he wrote a piece about it for the New York Times. And he is a friend of a friend. I've met him many times. And so I was seeing on Instagram that all of a sudden he's walking constantly and he's seeing friends constantly. And I was
Yeah.
like, yep, this is what it is. It's this like reconnecting with these parts of yourself.
Mm.
And there is something very special about that time, I think, where
Yeah.
you're reconnecting with who you are. So I think that's
Right.
fantastic
I
that
don't
you're
want
getting
to
it.
say that it's not who you are when you're in a relationship because who you are is still that person too. It's just who you are in these different circumstances is different than who you are when you're with someone, I guess.
That's a great point. When
Yeah.
you do your walks in Berlin, do you always walk the same places or are they different places or like where are you walking? I just want to picture it.
I go downstairs, I take a left, and I go down this one street that's right abuts my street, and I often find myself there because it's really, really pretty. I walk down that street a lot of mornings, but I have a couple different directions. I have my northerly routes and my southerly routes and my westerly routes. I don't go to the east very much because it's just not so pretty over there. I used to like to run over there, but for walking, there's not, I don't know, not much to see. I also like to have a mission when I go for a walk in the morning. Maybe it's a coffee at a certain place, or maybe I have to like pick something up at the drugstore, or maybe I just want to go look at the sunrise over the certain street, but I like to have a mission or a destination in mind.
Do
So
you
it's not the
listen
same.
to things?
I do
Do you have things in your ear? Yeah.
always. I'm almost never not listening to something. It's just folded into my job. Um, I like to listen to lately, I've been really, really loving. You didn't ask me what it was. You just asked me if I did or not, but I'm going to tell
Well,
you
I'm
what
also curious what it is. I really do want to know.
All right. Well, lately I've been really loving Poetry Unbound, which is a new
That's
poetry podcast.
that is amazing.
Isn't it great? I
That is
love
that voice
mm-hmm. I just
and
want
the
to curl up
insights.
and live inside of it forever. It's so good.
I need to I don't know. I have not heard an episode lately. I need to check on my subscription. I need to like make sure that I'm subscribed to that podcast.
There's so much
Um,
there. Yeah. I mean, there's so many podcasts. It's hard to keep up with all of them, but I've been really enjoying listening to that lately. And then one that I have listened to for years now religiously. One of the only ones that I consistently listen to is The Read. But that's sometimes a little too aggressive for me in the morning. I'll be like on my way back. But I like that. I also end up listening to voice messages from my friends, which is really nice. Sometimes music, but most often it's a podcast or something.
what I always have this moment, and I think I wrote you on Instagram and said there's this one moment where I'm wondering if there's something that's been on your mind that you haven't gotten to talk about in other ways. Maybe you haven't gotten to talk about it on your podcast. Do you have something like that? I just want to give you your own space to cover whatever you're interested in.
Hmm. You're gonna have to do some heavy editing here, or our husband will have to. There are a couple things that I've been thinking about a lot lately. I'm not sure if they make good answers. Feel free to just lop them out if they don't. I've been thinking about anger a lot lately, and how I think especially this is not relegated to women, but women especially are cultured to not express anger, to not be angry women. Angry women are looked upon fondly. We are bred to be pleasing so often. I know that my mother definitely did that. She sent me off to school every day saying, smile pretty and be nice to everyone.
Oh,
And there's
that's like there it is.
Whoa is the right answer. So yeah, I do think that it definitely helped me in some ways, but in others, I grew up learning that I had to be pleasing in order to be acceptable, and that I had to be anodyne, that I had to fix other people's problems, and that I had to be uncomplaining and needless. And I think it's led to hardships in a lot of ways for me. It's led to difficulties at work because I'm a shit delegator. I've had to learn how to delegate. I'm still not extremely skilled at it. It's one of the things that I want to get really good at in like the next year or so.
Because you're just avoiding telling people what to do. You just avoid.
Because I don't want them to think that I'm mad at them because they haven't already done it. And then I question Caitlyn, why would you think that they would think that you're mad at them? Why? I don't want to be bossy. I'm also very tall. I'm about 6 feet tall, and I'm not a small lady. And having assertiveness come from a really big person, especially when it's a woman, I think can be a little bit shocking. So I've been careful to be nice for a lot of my life, but I've realized that I've also been really, really angry about some things that I did not give the appropriate voice to. And ultimately, anger can really live in you and live in your body in ways that you don't want it to. And I don't think that we're ever ready to realize something about ourselves that we're not ready to realize. It happens when it happens, but I recently got in touch with a whole pillar of anger that I'd been holding back for years, and I feel powerful and better having uncovered it. So I guess what I'm saying is I've been thinking about anger and how it can be extremely destructive to our relationships, to ourselves, to our bodies, but how when we recognize it and we treat it with some honor, it can also be incredibly empowering because anger gives you the juice to do stuff. It's fuel in a lot of ways. And yeah, I've been exploring that in my brain lately.
What helped you? I think that's amazing, by the way. I don't think this should be edited whatsoever.
All right.
What made you get in touch with, like, how did you know, oh, this is what how did you recognize the pillar?
Um, I mean, I guess I'm just going to be talking about this relationship that's over because it's a thing that I'm dealing
I mean,
with.
it's so fresh. It's
It
so
is so
fresh.
So fresh relationship woes ready for action.
Yes.
Not really a woe, it's fine. But I realized that I'd been angry at him for something for a very long time. When our relationship started, it was a very hard time in his life and a really great one in mine. And because we were doing so differently in terms of just how we were, it was really hard for him to see me do well. And I shrank myself a lot and allowed some treatment that I would never allow otherwise. And I just went with it for years. And I don't think that's his fault. I think it's also, I don't think there's fault here. I think it's just a thing that happened because of circumstances. But I realized that despite not thinking it's his fault necessarily, I was pretty angry about it because it wasn't right. And finding it within myself to actually be angry about it and admit that I was angry about it made me feel a return to my own integrity, which was important.
That's so interesting that something could be in there just waiting for acknowledgement.
Oh yeah.
Like just waiting.
Tons of those things. We all have tons of those things, you know, who knows what's living inside of you. And I think it's often about how ready you are to admit that about yourself. I didn't want to see myself as an angry person. I wanted to see him as forgiven. Not that he even really needed to be forgiven. I just wanted to,
You wanted resolution around that topic. You wanted to feel like I've dealt and that's resolved. Yeah.
But it wasn't resolved. And because it wasn't resolved, it was making parts of me gangrenous, you know? So
would you ever describe it as resolved now, or is it a matter of living with the irresolution?
I think
or hard to know too soon. Oh, no, wow. Okay.
I think it is resolved now. And I think it's resolved now because I admitted to myself and to him, I don't think that I can get over this. And I don't think I should.
Amazing.
And it was tough to say. It was tough to admit. I still feel a little bit like an asshole for it in some ways, but I also feel like it was a thing that had to happen.
Sometimes we need to be a little bit of an asshole.
Sometimes we do. I don't know how you do episode titles, but maybe that's what this one is called.
Usually it's just the person's first name. I'm very inspired by, I don't know if you ever listened to Heavyweight.
I have listened to Heavyweight, yeah. I love the episode when he gets his dad and his brother to make up. Just, oh God. I've listened to it so many times. That is a triumph of audio. It's so beautiful.
It's such a beautiful show. Yeah, I mean, every episode has some little jewel in it.
Yeah.
Do you have any, I think your walking one is amazing. Do you have any other tactics that have worked for you in your life in dealing with stress or anxiety or overthinking or any of those things? Like any other just wisdoms along the way?
Yeah. No, I have ones that have worked for me and ones that patently haven't that I wouldn't recommend. I was an over-exerciser for a long time, and I've got the worn down joints to show for it. I don't do that anymore only because I can't. And I recognize that. I recognize that that is a beast that lives in me. And if I could be, you know, running for an hour and a half every day, I would do it because it makes me shut my brain off and I feel better. But luckily I have, again, this very eloquent body that says, no, Caitlyn, how about we don't do that? So I wouldn't recommend over exercising, but I would recommend gentle movement. Um, I think that for a long time, writing was that outlet for me. Writing to sort of figure out what I was so stressed out about or what I was upset about. It was also, I found a way to make beautiful something that was not, to create resolution for things that felt unresolved. I think that's also a reason that I haven't written very much in the past couple of years, because I realized that I was imposing false endings on things that did not have neat endings. Um, so I'm just giving you
That
things
is
that
a pitfall of writing, by the way. That
it
is such
really
a pitfall. Like, we got to
is.
finish this essay. Let's pretend like there's something to say.
What's the lesson? Is there a lesson? If there's not a
Yeah.
lesson, then
Yeah. I
yeah.
one of the things I've always really appreciated about you from afar is
Huh.
that I do feel like you allow yourself to be very sharp, that you do not sort of kowtow your language choice, your vocabulary, your intelligence. I think it's rare to have a 6 foot tall woman who is incredibly smart, who is out in the world. And like, to me, that's inspirational, actually. So you may be
Oh,
affecting people simply by your presence in a way you can't know. I just want you to be aware of that.
that is such a beautiful gift. Thank you for saying that.
It's
Thank you.
true.
I really appreciate it. Thanks.
It's totally
Thanks.
true. And that's why when I was working on this podcast, I'm thinking of some of the sharpest people that I want to have on, and you were top of my
Oh,
list. So I am so grateful that you took this time to do our transcontinental conversation.
thank you. It's been so nice to talk to you too, and great to see your face and interact a little bit. I mean,
I
interacted on Anchor, which actually is not that different from having a video chat, but
It's true. You're right. You're
yeah.
right.
Well,
Okay, I'm gonna hit unhit record, but don't go away because I still want to talk to you for a second longer.
sure.